Right now, somewhere on this planet, a perfectly reasonable adult is sitting in a business meeting, nodding along to a quarterly earnings report, while one of their hands has quietly gone rogue and started performing minor surgery on their own thumb. No parasite, no splinter, no actual problem, just a low hum of something feels off here. Better investigate, followed by 20 minutes of picking and a mild sense of self-betrayal by lunchtime. If you've ever caught yourself doing this, with your skin, your cuticles, a hangnail that definitely did not need 3 follow-up appointments, you've probably assumed it means something's wrong with you. Bad nerves, a bad habit, maybe undiagnosed anxiety, maybe you just need to buy a fidget toy off the internet. There's a clinical name for it, skin picking disorder or dermatillomania, one of a small family of what researchers call body-focused repetitive behaviors. A name isn't the same as an explanation, though. We're taking apart an assumption today that picking it yourself is a modern malfunction, a glitch invented by stress and smartphones and open-plan offices. Stick around because the real explanation involves ancient grooming circuits, feather-plucking parrots, cats that groom themselves bald. A very specific brain circuit neuroscientists have now traced wire by wire, and the uncomfortable possibility that your body is running a maintenance program that was never designed to be run on you, alone, in a well-lit bathroom, at 1 in the morning with a magnifying mirror. Wind the clock back, not to a specific date, nobody's carbon dating a picking session, but to the kind of world your body was actually built to run in. Picture a small band of hominids sitting in the shade, and somebody's got their fingers in somebody else's hair. This wasn't romance, it was maintenance. A full-time, unpaid pest control operation targeting ticks, lice, dirt, dead skin, and the occasional thorn, and it runs on every primate troop on the planet, then and now. None of that was optional behavior. Untreated parasites and skin wounds could kill you slowly, through infection, blood loss, or disease, so evolution did what it always does with things that matter this much. It built a dedicated urge for it, a brain circuit that says scan the body and the bodies around you for anything that looks wrong, and don't stop until it's gone. You might be thinking this is just anxiety that people pick when they're stressed, and that's not exactly a groundbreaking observation. Fair enough. But researchers who study this behavior have actually split it into 2 distinct styles. Focused picking is the one you'd expect, driven by disgust, by the visual and tactile pull of a specific bump or blemish, often tangled up with a real emotion you're trying to manage. Automatic picking is the other half, and it's the one running in our opening scene. It shows up during boredom, during zoned out, passive stretches like, say, a meeting about quarterly earnings, and it happens with barely any awareness at all. Studies also find people drift from the focused style toward the automatic style as they get older, which means the honest answer to "isn't this just anxiety" is sometimes, but often it isn't anxiety doing this to you at all. It's boredom finding the exact same ancient switch and flipping it anyway. And that's the reversal. Skin picking and nail biting aren't a broken version of a modern coping mechanism. They're a fully intact working version of an ancient survival system. A parasite and wound patrol circuit, now firing in a world that finally, mercifully, ran out of parasites for it to find. Researchers who study what are clinically called body-focused repetitive behaviors, or BFRBs, have landed on something close to this idea. Dr. Nancy Cuthan directs the Excoriation Clinic and Research Unit at Massachusetts General Hospital, and now leads a national initiative trying to subtype these behaviors for better treatment matching. She spent decades documenting how skin-picking and hair-pulling disorders cluster with, but aren't identical to, OCD, and they behave more like a grooming circuit that's lost its off switch. Separately, ethologists going back to Nico Tinbergen describe something called displacement grooming, where animals under stress redirect that anxious energy into self-grooming behavior that has nothing to do with the actual threat in front of them. A bird can't fight the hawk circling overhead, so it preens instead. A primate can't fix the social tension in the troop, so it starts picking at its own arm. We're not just guessing at the wiring anymore either. A 2020 study in Nature Communications traced this loop as a physical circuit running from a region of the hippocampus through the lateral septum into the hypothalamus, and found that triggering it doesn't just produce grooming. It produces a genuine hit of positive feeling along with it. Brain scanning studies on people with skin-picking disorder have separately found thinner cortex in the exact regions that process touch and body sensation, in the parietal cortex. That may be part of why a normal touch or a minor bump can register as something that urgently needs fixing, and why finishing the fix feels so satisfying, real problem or not. What's actually happening in your skull, then, is a feedback loop tuned by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Grooming, in general, triggers a real release of endorphins and lowers stress hormones, which is a big part of why primates do it obsessively even when nobody has fleas. It feels good, genuinely, chemically good in the moment. And that's not a design flaw. That's the whole point. Evolution needed grooming to feel rewarding enough that animals would do it constantly, because constant vigilance is what kept infections from turning into funerals. The problem is that the reward system doesn't know the difference between removing an actual parasite and removing a millimeter of skin that was doing nothing wrong. It just knows something got scanned, something got resolved, dopamine got released. Mission accomplished as far as your brainstem is concerned. You don't have to take humans' word for how strange this gets either, because the rest of the animal kingdom runs this exact same glitch, loudly. Captive parrots are notorious among vets for something called feather-plucking, where a bored or stressed bird will pull out its own feathers, sometimes down to bare skin, in an environment with zero actual parasites to justify it. It's such a reliable stress signal that avian veterinarians use plucking as one of the first things they check for when a pet bird's environment has gone wrong. Cats do a version of this too, called psychogenic alopecia, where an anxious or understimulated cat licks itself bald in patches, usually on the belly or legs, the exact spots a cat would once have been checking for wounds or ticks. It's not just captivity either. Primatologists have long documented over-grooming and self-plucking in wild and zoo primates during periods of social stress, high population density, or disrupted hierarchies. Different animals, different nervous systems, all reaching for the same ancient tool. The second life gets stressful, or in the automatic cases, the second life gets boring. Groom something until it feels resolved. You are not doing anything a parrot, a cat, and a stressed-out chimpanzee haven't already done first. Which brings us uncomfortably close to home. Somewhere along the way, humans invented the mirror, then the smartphone front camera, then the Zoom call with your own face staring back at you for 45 minutes at a time, then the ring light. Then the 4K selfie camera that will happily show you a pore you didn't know you had. We built an entire modern world engineered to serve your ancient parasite scanning circuit an infinite buffet of flaws to investigate, except now they're not parasites, they're just skin. A bump, a hangnail, a blemish that, evolutionarily speaking, isn't going to kill anyone, but that your brain is absolutely convinced needs to be handled right now. Name the mismatch plainly. Your body is running a pathogen and parasite detection system built for a world with actual pathogens and parasites in it, and it's now operating in a world of climate-controlled bathrooms, HD front-facing cameras, and zero actual bugs to find. So it's had to start inventing targets. The system was built to protect you from infection. Now, ironically, the picking itself is often what causes the infection, the scarring, the thing you're then compulsively trying to smooth over. Picture a smoke detector so well designed it kept your ancestors' campfires from burning down entire settlements, and then somebody installs that same smoke detector in a house with no fireplace, so it just starts occasionally setting itself off at 3 in the morning for no reason, and the homeowner has learned to just live with the beeping. That's the itch. That's the urge. A very good alarm system ringing in a house that stopped needing it decades ago. Now the honest caveat, because this isn't a video that gets to evolution explain away real suffering and move on. For a meaningful number of people, this crosses from quirky ancient wiring into something that genuinely needs clinical attention. Excoriation disorder, or chronic skin picking, is recognized in the DSM-5 as its own diagnosis, distinct from a habit. Somewhere around 1.4 to 5.4% of the population deals with it, and for those people it causes real tissue damage, scarring, infections, and a level of shame and time loss that just an evolutionary leftover doesn't fully capture. Organizations like the TLC Foundation for BFRBs exist specifically because this behavior, left unaddressed, can seriously affect people's lives, and it's not always solvable by simply understanding where the urge comes from. Knowing the evolutionary backstory can loosen the shame, but it isn't therapy. If this is genuinely disrupting your life, that's a talk to an actual clinician problem, not a watch a YouTube video problem. We're explaining the wiring here, not prescribing the fix. Here's where I want to leave you though, because the takeaway shouldn't be shame, evolutionary or otherwise. That urge to pick, to check, to smooth something over with your fingers isn't evidence that you're anxious, broken, or weak-willed. It's evidence that you're carrying a fully functional, extremely old piece of survival software, one that kept your ancestors skin infection-free for a few 100,000 years before anybody had heard of dermatology. It did its job so well that it's still running, dutifully, on a body that no longer needs it, like a guard still pacing the wall of a fort that got turned into a shopping mall decades ago because nobody ever told him the war was over. That's not pathetic. That's loyalty. Misplaced. Itchy. Occasionally scarring loyalty. But loyalty all the same. So the next time you catch your own hand doing something to your thumb that you didn't consciously authorize, you don't have to spiral about what's wrong with you. Somewhere back in the shade of a Pleistocene afternoon, that exact same circuit was keeping somebody's ancestor alive. It just never got the memo that the ticks are gone. Alright, question for the comments, and I want actual honesty here, not the polite answer. What's your go-to picking target? Cuticles? A scab? The skin around your nails? Something else entirely? Tell me what it is, and whether you've ever managed to actually stop, because I have a feeling the replies to this one are going to be a mess, in the best way. And if you want to keep understanding why your brain and body do things that make no sense in the modern world, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming.